I look around and all I'm seeing is just like this renaissance of Black enterprise taking place. You look at EYL, you look at Topicals, you look at all of these like major Black owned entities, and these are a lot of young people doing this. Like this is not like a 50 to 60 age type of thing. Like these are people like our ages really breaking ground in the Black entrepreneurial space. So, I was like, we're literally living in a Black renaissance right now. And where, our creativity is, at the top. I mean, it's always been at the top, but
it's giving roaring 20s.
Roaring 20s. Yeah, we're back in that lane, but this is just the digital iteration of it. Yeah, it was good.
I need more passion. I need to feel the year.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll take it. Welcome to Mind Over Matter, baby. I'm your host, DEJA Wallace, and if this is your first time joining, welcome. If this is not, welcome back. I appreciate you. You really came back to listen to another episode. Like, shout out to you. I appreciate you. We got a big guest in the building, the biggest, okay? We got a lovely guest, as you can hear from the year from our audio listeners. If you're watching on the YouTube, you can see I have a lovely guest. We have Mr. JaJuan Malachi, y'all.
Yes. I'm very happy to be here, DEJA.
I'm happy to have you. I'm happy to have you. I'm going to drop a bunch of bombs. We have journalist, creative, CEO, and founder of Black Journalist Collective, which is like a safe space for different journalists and different creatives. Storytellers, I like that word.
Black storytellers.
Black storytellers of their respected industries where they come together in unity, community, and it's just a beautiful thing you're building.
Thank you. And also harmony too.
Oh yeah. Can't forget that.
No beef, just love.
Heavy on that. It's like, I'm a product of it. It's just like something that I feel like this space have been yearning, and something I've been yearning as a creative is just like that community. So I'm just like happy that you even stepped out on faith and really pushed this forward. Yeah. But you could like let people know who you are, like what you do, like get them familiar with you. I know this is a familiar face.
Yes. This is not my first appearance.
Yes, it's an OG.
Mind Over Matter. So, definitely honored to be here. I'm a culture journalist. I've been in the industry for about 8 years now. It's been a long journey over the years. I've been fortunate enough to work in a lot of notable news spaces. So I worked at NBC Universal, I worked at Fox, I worked at ABC News over the years in varying capacities. Freelanced at a ton of different places. So I freelanced at the Nocturnal, freelanced at Galore Magazine. Where else have I been? 1202 Magazine as well. So, just a lot of different places. And it's been a very long journey, DEJA. Almost a decade in, to be frank.
He's seasoned.
Yes. So, I've been fortunate enough to find success on this journey. And about 3 years ago, I decided to create the BJC, also known as the Black Journalist Collective. The impetus behind that stems from a bit of a dark place, to be honest. I kind of felt like this lingering sense of isolation and seclusion in my journey. Just being the only Black guy in a lot of these predominantly white spaces, not being able to take space how I want to, how I feel like I deserve to, relative to my counterparts. And so, I one day reached the epiphany. I'm like, yo, if I feel like this, I'm sure there are other young Black storytellers, young Black journalists, content creators, etc., who might feel a similar way.
For sure. And that's really what I want to dive in on this discussion today is about just so much gatekeeping happening when it comes to like getting your foot in the industry or getting your foot into media.
Yeah.
It's such an industry that has just, I think, skyrocketed when it comes to just the appeal over the years, you know, with social media and everything. So when it comes to just looking like us in that industry, it still has that negative stigma that it's only room for just a few, not too many, you know?
Yeah.
So I really want to dive into that.
Yeah, a few notable faces, you know, select faces.
Exactly.
But I think that in the digital age that we live in, I feel like news is becoming a lot more community driven and interactive driven with the advent of AI assisted content curation, hyper personalized news feeds kind of shaping the way we consume media. For example, your podcast, is something definitely I'm subscribed to.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. No doubt.
Yeah, subscribe if you're not.
My honor. And, I think that the landscape is shifting and is becoming a lot more democratized to the point where, everybody can eat at the end of the day. YouTube is like open up the floodgates. What else do we have? Patreon is like
avenue. Patreon is like the OG of really incentivizing creators for what they're really worth.
Yeah, for sure. And so, we have to take advantage of that. We have to optimize it. And there has to be a very deliberate shifting of the guards, so to speak. Back in the day, a lot of these corporations held all of the power, but now you see content creators going above and beyond. We look at like a Kai Cenat or a DDG or, all of these people.
Streamers, yep.
Yeah, all these streamers really doubling down and, taking space and, being called upon by these corporations to help them maintain and sustain and stuff like that. So,
right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the BJC is kind of, focused on the future. And, it's about building community. We just spoke to Art, about the concept of community and how important it is. And I think that, networking laterally is something that is super underrated. The BJC is a breeding ground for that.
For sure.
Networking upward and vertically is cool, but laterally is important as well because you don't know where your peers are going to be. Exactly. 2 to 3 to 4 years from now. And so the group of people that we have attached to the BJC, I know are going to be phenomenal. Moving forward. And so
my first event, I got shivers down my spine being in that room. It's like I could be talking to the next Issa Rae. I could be talking to the next Regina King, and I felt that essence in the room. And I'm not going to lie, seeing the development has really just been so inspirational, Yeah. Because it's happening so rapidly, but it's like at the same time,
it's a snowball.
You've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah. I've been in the
work.
industry.
So this is just like a manifestation of the work you put in. It's not like you're just starting from ground level. You know a bunch of things. And it's like...
not at all.
Those 10 years you've been hustling, grinding, going from industry to industry, prominent industries that are well known and accredited. What made you step out and really say, I'm starting my own thing. I want to build my own brand. Like, what was like the pivotal moment, like the aha, this is why I need to do this?
Well, I've always been a proponent for Black enterprise, owning our own. My stepdad that's something that he always instilled in me. And, growing up, I kind of was focused on following that path of, the traditional path, go to college, get your degree, stuff like that. But then after I did all of that, I recently got my master's in 2023 at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism. And, after I did all of that, I was just like, all right, what's next? It was cool to get the degrees and get the roles and, acquire the status and the credentials. But, I look around and all I'm seeing is just like this renaissance of Black enterprise taking place. You look at EYL, you look at Topicals, you look at all of these like major Black owned entities, and these are a lot of young people doing this. Like, this is not like a 50 to 60 age type of thing. Like, these are people like our ages really breaking ground in the Black entrepreneurial space. So, I was like, we're literally living in a Black renaissance right now. And where, our creativity is, at the top. I mean, it's always been at the top, but
it's giving roaring 20s.
Roaring 20s. Yeah, we're back in that lane, but this is just the digital iteration of it. And so, I'm like, we're living in sort of like a gold mine when it comes to ideas too. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just be the change I want to see in the world. I
love that. I love that so much.
Thank you. And let me not allow my fear to inhibit my growth and my development. I was a bit frightful. I mean, even now,
it's natural though.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, it's intimidating at times. Being in certain rooms now, I'm hosting events. I'm co-hosting events at Dumbo House and at Soho House now, and
Google it.
Being in these like rarefied rooms. Yeah. I'm working with pop viewers. Shout out to Chris Witherspoon. He's been
big up.
Yeah, he's been looking out for me, and he sees the vision. He wants to see the brand grow. He wants to see me grow as an individual. And it's been an honor to be able to collaborate and synergize with him on that. But also the BJC, we've launched 4 successful events independent of our collaborative efforts.
Events.
Yes, very successful. Conversation and Libations.
For sure.
DEJA can attest to.
Yeah, I'm a product.
Yes. She's a product. She's a proud member of the space.
For sure.
And so, it's definitely just an honor to be at the forefront and kind of leading the charge on something that's bigger than me. I would say, I think that was another craving for me to fulfill going into this endeavor. For a long time, it was like an individual pursuit. It was just JaJuan Malachi, just trying to figure things out, trying to, get to the highest point in my career. And then I eventually reached the epiphany where I'm like, it's not just about me. It's about community. It's about creating spaces that are larger than me. And, spaces that are advantageous for not only me, but for everybody in the room. I'm somebody who is big on community. I grew up playing sports. I have younger siblings. I've been a part of various clubs, organizations over the years. So, I understand the power, the infinite power of community, and what proper synergy can do for somebody in life,
Right. I want to lean back into you mentioned that you had to overcome fear. You had to overcome just doubt and just like negative self-talk, essentially. What was the biggest mental hurdle that you had to go over to actually get to this point?
That's a great question. I had to eliminate the fear of being judged. And I had to kind of push that to the back burner and not be frightful about what people are going to think or what they're going to say, but, kind of just putting boots to the ground and actually doing the work and committing to it and, putting my head down. I think that oftentimes we live in like this hyper-vigilant, hyper-surveillant type of space where we're just constantly thinking about what the next person might think about what we're doing and how we're being perceived. And, in this journey, like...
And nobody really be caring for real.
Yeah, nobody be caring for real. It's all in our head, And so I think for me, that was something that I had to overcome, just not being too fixated on, the reception of everything, but, just maintaining focus on the action of it all. Reaching out to people, being a person in real life and in real time and, not getting so caught up in the digital sphere of everything. So a lot of people kind of struggle with, engaging with each other in sort of just like a natural way nowadays,
It's true, yeah.
approaching people in the street, establishing rapport in real time. The pandemic really had a huge impact on that, especially for like the younger generation. But, fortunately enough, I'm at the intersection of the millennial and Gen Z space. I was born in 97. And so to my knowledge, Gen Z started in 97. But
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to, have developed a very strong social dexterity.
You're the last generation that was brought up without technology.
Yeah. And I think that has played like a crucial role in, just my ability to build and, to have a connection to reality.
Exactly. I think that's going to definitely be the commodity in this generation is community and is just like your ability to connect with people. Like people didn't even look at that as an asset or a skill, but now that's an actual skill. Like I look at you work in these rooms and I'm like, that's a skill. You had to learn that. Like that's not natural to most people being brought up now. You know what I mean? Most people are like, they're going to say like they're introverted. They're more on the introverted side. Like that's more the term being like normalized now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm with my homegirl, or, I'm over here in my little space.
Exactly.
Doing me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm with my peoples.
Yeah. It's flex though.
I appreciate that. It's funny that you even like recognize it. I think it's very subtle. My friends like to make fun of me, tell me that like, I'm just a natural social butterfly and, it just comes naturally to me. I think a lot of it comes from just like genes too. My dad is very much an extrovert. And I think that a lot of his positive attributes like kind of trickle down to me. So I took all of the positive and kind of like bolstered it into my own iteration. And so, yeah, I'm happy that you recognize, that because like you said, it is a skill. And I think that it's something that I've been able to hone in on and develop really strongly during my, 20 something years, having gone to NYU. Like a space like that is like, you have to find your own community there. It's a microcosm of reality. When you step out into the world, nobody's going to hand you community.
That's funny. The last person I had on, he went to NYU too.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Like, all right.
Shout out to NYU Violet Gang in the building.
Okay.
But yeah,
what's like the number one advice you would give to somebody that isn't that good at networking? Like, what's the number one thing you will say that will make a successful person at networking? Because sometimes it feels unnatural, You know
what I would say? I would say don't take yourself too seriously. I think that is a tangible thought process that people that have trepidation about it can like truly grasp and, implement that into their daily life. I have friends who are introverted and they tell me, oh, I don't really know how to do it like you, or, I don't really know how to like work the space, or, I don't find utility in it. But, that's just you being in your head about it at the end of the day. I think when we have this like paralysis by analysis type of thing, I think that was a term that Quincy Jones like coined. And, like we think too much about certain things. Sometimes we got to just act. Say hello and then ask questions later, or, don't be so in your head about it, because
that's
we're all
really where it
yeah, we're all humans, we're all in these particular spaces for the same reason. I would say I even have trepidation, like approaching people like on the street, like just random, no context. Like that's something I still struggle with.
But that's always going to be nerve-wracking, I feel like.
Yeah, it is. But you have to just push yourself out of your comfort zone. I feel like a lot of people stifle themselves when they don't at least try to, put themselves out there in those social settings.
It gets easier too.
It does get easier, It's just like anything in life.
It's like called exposure therapy. That's what they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely believe that is a thing. I would say early on in my career, one exercise that I had to get through early on, I was a part of this program at NBC Universal called the PAGE program. And so a main facet of the program is giving tours of NBC studios. So Studio 8H, which is home to SNL, Studio 6B, which is home to The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, I'm somebody who considers themselves to be super introverted. Well, not introverted. I'm extroverted, but I'm somebody who's mild-mannered and kind of soft-spoken. So
reserved.
Reserved, yeah. So I'll talk to you, but I'm soft-spoken and mild-mannered about it. But, a part of the program was like giving these tours and kind of adapting. And, irrespective of your characteristics, irrespective of where you come from, like everybody had to learn this particular skill. And it's like, it's a do or die type of situation, life or death. Like it's either you do it and flourish, or, you don't do it. And I mean, it was an essential part of the program. So you had to do it. You had to figure it out, and I like to think that, a part of like that process of it was taking a test. We had to take like a tour test. So everybody had to be evaluated on how they were doing in the tour and stuff. And so for me, I actually failed my test. So, that just made me even hungrier to like figure it out. So I like to think of, that process of trying and failing, because you're never really failing. You only fail when you don't try. I mean, I guess...
Or try again if you don't try again.
Yeah, if you don't try again, So you can't be afraid to fail, Like for me, one thing that is new, I would say, in my journey has been kind of speaking in front of crowds, public speaking, right? That's something that I was able to like develop a bit of a penchant or an ability during my time in the PAGE program. But first and foremost, I'm primarily a writer. So, kind of translating that into video and translating that into podcast discussions like how we're having now, and then kind of being called upon now to like speak in front of like groups of like 50 to 100 people at a time. I'm like, wow, like I didn't even anticipate on this being a thing. This is like a new part of the journey.
Yeah.
So, just figuring that part out, and navigating that has been a bit of a challenge for me. But, at the same time, every time I do it, I'm walking into it with fear. But the more I do it, I'm realizing I'm getting better at it.
Exactly.
And so, that's emblematic of just the journey of, acquiring a new skill, learning how to do something new, entering new spaces and, developing comfortability with it. Like you just have to get through, you have to break through that fear.
I truly believe that like entrepreneurship is an extension of your mental. It's like an extension of your spirituality. It's an extension of everything, Coming into this conversation, you said, oh, we're going to talk about BJC.
Yeah.
But I know the vibe of BJC because I know you.
Yeah.
It's an extension of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hear like, oh, don't support these businesses because like these people are like bad people. And you can see that some attributes in like even their employees, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's palpable.
It's
palpable. And so, everything, they say that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, right? I mean, I think that is very true. And so when it comes, it's funny that you mentioned sort of like the aura and the spirit and the DNA of the BJC, because, I think that it is an extension of me. And I think that
exactly
that's a major part of why people are enticed by it, why people want to, engage with it, because they know me to be, a good person. They know me to be virtuous, diligent, all of the things. And while I'm not perfect, I strive to be a good person at the end of the day. And so I think that, moving forward, that's what the BJC is going to be about. It's going to be about cultivating genuine energy in the room, cultivating sincere community, not just transaction. Like you go to a lot of these like industry events, or you go to a lot of these like mixers and stuff like that, and it's just purely transactional.
Yeah.
And that's not what the BJC is about. It's about authenticity. It's about coming together with other brilliant minds, other movers and shakers who are in their own respective spaces, and us just coming together, building like this this like Megatron of, brilliant Black minds in the media space.
Right.
And it's also an inclusive space. I also want to highlight that inclusive, accessible, at the moment, we haven't been charging, for the event. A lot of it has just been, free of charge. And a lot of that is because I want to ensure that it's inclusive and that, there are very little barriers to entry,
Yeah, you feel the intentionality when you walk into one of your events. It's like every person that I meet, it feels like they're supposed to be there. You know what I mean? And it just feels like they're in alignment almost.
Yeah.
Like everything just feels super intentional. Even with the people that I'm connecting with, it's like, wow, like you're doing big things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like inspirational. Always leave inspired, just ready to like get focused, And yeah, I
appreciate that so much, DEJA, because it's so it warms my heart when people enter the space and they're like, wow, like I've been looking for a community like this, like you're like essentially like supplementing the void that I've had. And so that was my vision from the jump. The last Conversational Libations part 4, it was like literally what I was envisioning from the jump, kind of like manifested in reality. All of these people from different quarters of the media space, in adjacent industries such as advertising and marketing. We even had some tech individuals in the building, but, everyone in the room is a mover and shaker. And I think that's what's going to distinguish the BJC moving forward. We're very intentional, like you said, about the energy and sort of like the type of people we have in the space. Everybody is pure-hearted. Everybody is going in that room with positive intentions. And, like I said, nothing is perfect, but, I feel like the space that we're creating is definitely a safe space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You spoke about manifestation. That's like the main thing I always reel it back in when we talking about just anything on this podcast, Mind Over Matter, right?
Yeah.
So what is a specific moment in your life that you've spoken your reality into existence?
That's a great question. So I would say making that transition from traditional news into more of the culture news space was something that I manifested. I have a background, like I said, in traditional news. I like to think of my career as like a double-edged sword in the sense that I have this traditional news space experience, but I also have a bunch of culture news experience. So in 2021, I made the pledge to transition out of traditional news into more of the culture news landscape. And upon kind of like establishing that thought and, figuring out a strategic plan for how I was going to implement it in reality, there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of people telling me like, yo, like, that's not possible. Like, people typically don't do that. It's going to be extremely difficult for you to be able to do that, but also make money off of it and be able to sustain your life and live. And, I'm somebody who likes to combat the naysayers, and I like to dispel misconceptions, especially when it comes to my ability. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to show you I can do it, and I'm going to double down on that.
Period.
So, yeah, people were telling me I couldn't do it, and then, I was kind of making that transition. And so I decided to go back to school because I felt like it wasn't enough as a Black man to have experience. I also needed the degree to double down so that you can have any excuse to tell me that I couldn't do whatever. So I went back to school to acquire more skills. So I learned how to use a Canon C100. I learned how to use a Canon 6D Mark II. I learned the ins and outs of social media. I also bolstered my skill set as a writer, learning how to cultivate op-eds, reviews.
That's why you're winning. Like, people skip that part a lot of the time.
That's true. I mean, I was already working at ABC News when I decided to go back to school.
Well, you didn't get comfortable.
I didn't get comfortable. I didn't. Complacency kills dreams. And,
That's a clip right there. I could send that.
Like Lil Wayne said, what did Lil Wayne say? Lil Wayne said, don't get too comfortable. He got that joint off the Carter 3. Like, that's a fact. Don't get too comfortable. Because you'll get knocked out of your seat real quick.
You're a testament to that. You went from NBC to all of these different industries, ABC and all of them companies, like all these different companies. And it's like so easy to get comfortable, especially when you're like the token Black person in these industries,
Oh, yeah. We gonna get into that too, yeah.
How did you navigate that world, just being a token Black man?
That's a great question. I made the most of it. It was a novel space for me at times. When I started working at NBC, so the program is a highly competitive program. They only choose so they say that 14,000 people apply each year, and they only select about 250 across the East and the West Coast.
It's like getting into Harvard.
Yeah. So they actually say it's harder to get into this program than it is, the Page program, than it is to get into Harvard. And so, I was a part of a cohort that consisted of about 22 people, all young, brilliant young minds from like different areas across the nation, who all had the mind of pursuing a career in contemporary media and different capacities, whether it be in the consumer space, the business space, the creative space. And so, in my cohort, it was 2 Black guys. So it was me and my boy Josh. And just navigating that was like really interesting. Developing the acumen in sort of just like those corporate sensibilities that nobody tells you how to develop. That was like my corporate 101, the Page program. Learning how to make mistakes, but also how to recover quickly and how to sort of impact positive change. And, just being an asset in those type of spaces is something that there's no textbook to it, especially as a Black person.
Did you feel like they ever like pin you guys against each other, or did it feel like some type of competition going on?
I mean, at times, but at the end of the day, I was chosen for a reason. There was something that they saw in me that, motivated them to select me as one of the 22 people in that particular cohort. And, I've kind of stood on that. I've kind of leaned into my authenticity as an individual. And I think that in those spaces as a Black person, the prospect of selling your soul is like a real thing. To be honest, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, we gonna keep it 100. Like, it's a lot of Black people in these spaces, selling their soul. Like, I'm gonna keep it 1,000. But I was just like one of those people that was like, nah, I'm gonna be JaJuan Malachi. Young Black man from the.
When you say selling your soul,
I know. I mean, I dropped a lot, right?
When I think of selling your soul, I'm thinking Lil Nas X, the blood in the shoe with the sneakers that he had, like some crazy stuff. It's not that extreme. Okay, cool.
I mean, it's not that extreme. Sure. So what I mean by selling your soul is, just being assimilated to like an exponential degree, to the point where,
like you say, jumpity jump kind of thing.
Yeah, like tap dancing.
All right, yeah.
Tap dancing
for
the white man.
Dance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, I can't knock people for how they combat white supremacy, because that is a thing in America. That's something that we kind of all have to combat and, deal with every day as Black people here in this country. But, it was just certain people that was just, I'm like, yo, you really doing this right now? But, it is what it is,
people, that's your way of doing things.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to neglect the fact that I am who I am and I am where I'm from. I'm not going to ignore certain aspects of my identity to appease. And I think that was a main pillar in my 20-something journey in this media space. just maintaining my authenticity, maintaining, that inner person. Because oftentimes there's like, this expectation that you must assimilate, you must, you must turn over, and, alter your natural being and your natural fabric. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like who I am naturally is enough, is more than enough. And I will not compromise on that. And I think that is also another reason why I felt inclined to cultivate the BJC, because that was something that was just a natural byproduct of me keeping my course and saying to myself, I'm going to be JaJuan Malachi. For example, I would say, comedians are people that I admire so much. When I think about, I know it's super random, but when I think about like a Mike Epps, or when I think about a Dave Chappelle or a Bernie Mac, or any of these prominent comedians, or Godfrey, all these people get to just be themselves, and they get to exist in their blackness 110%, and and they're revered for it, and people love them for it. And I'm like, why can't I do that? That was like my frame of thought. Even with like artists, you think about like a Mos Def or a D'Angelo, or the list goes on with Black artists. But all of these people have never really compromised much in terms of like their personality, in terms of their identity, and that's the side of the token of Blackness in America that I want to be a part of. And that's not to knock anybody who, might have grew up in a predominantly white space. But, that wasn't my reality. I come from a space, I was just talking to one of my friends about this. I come from, the inner city. I grew up in Bed-Stuy, and then I moved to the Wakefield area of the Bronx, where I was around a bunch of Caribbean folks, and there was some Hispanic people. We had like a really small subsection of Albanian people in the Bronx, in the area I lived in. And, I was predominantly around Black and brown people, like, until I went to undergrad. Going to undergrad was like, a bit of a culture shock for me, going to NYU and, being exposed to like essentially a sea of whiteness, that I had never experienced. Or not even just whiteness, but just multiculturalism in a very abundant and palpable way. Being the sole Black man to graduate from NYU with my degree in English, like, to my knowledge, I'm the only Black man in my graduating class to graduate with a degree.
Still doing that?
Yeah, with a degree. With a degree that I earned, which was an English degree. Yeah.
Wow.
So 2019, yeah.
What legacy do you want to leave behind?
It's a great question. I want to leave behind a legacy of pride in my identity as a Black man. I want to help others along the way. So paying it forward is something that means the world to me. Because it's not just about me at the end of the day. It's about everybody who is coming after me in this journey too. I want, them to feel a sense of comfort, and I want them to feel a sense of belonging and community that supersedes, just me as an individual. So I think that's one thing I want to give back. That's like a core pillar of what I want to do. And, I just want to leave a positive, lasting legacy for people that aspire to occupy similar spaces to follow. That's what I want. And to be proud about it, and to pay homage to the people that have even come before me. When I think about some of my influences, I think about a Torre, I think about a Terrence J. These are people in the media space that have kind of shaped my perspective and that have inspired me to get to that next level. Even a lot of my contemporaries, my boy Jiggy Jones, shout out to Jiggy Jones. My boy Mark Elibert,
Big up Mark.
COO of the Black Journalist Collective. There's certain people, that have like motivated me, to get to that next level, and to not compromise, but to embrace who I am wholeheartedly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What does the statement "mind over matter" mean to you?
Mind over matter. I think mind over matter is everything, to be frank. I think that there is nothing that you can't do when you hone your mind and you develop it and you challenge your mind to expand and to grow beyond its current parameters. And I think that requires a certain degree of deliberate energy, and I think that requires a certain degree of courage. I think that some people are fearful of their mind and what it's capable of doing, and how we can grow and expand it and contort it to what we want it to be. But I think anything is possible when you're able to hone and develop the mind how you want.
Wow. I think that was the best answer, y'all. Y'all gotta step y'all answers up. No, that was really good. Wow. Yeah. Just like even growing like in this space and things of that nature. I dealt, it's in the past, with imposter syndrome. And I remember saying that to you. I don't remember where we were, but I said it to you and you had like laughed. You was like, that's a real thing. And I was just like, yo,
really?
Facts. Yeah. I don't remember where we were, but I had mentioned it to you because it was like weighing heavy on me. And you laughed and you was like, like, that's a real thing. I didn't know that was a real thing. And then you went back about your day. Like, and I liked that answer because it was like, yo, you told yourself it's a real thing. That's why it's a real thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I literally like had to really like sit back and be like, yo, it's a real thing because you gave it power to be a real thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you got to keep telling yourself all these good things, even if the outside world is looking bad,
I agree. And you have to feed yourself good things. Your diet has to consist of positive things.
Exactly.
You have to be mindful and cognizant of like what you're feeding yourself. For me, like imposter syndrome is a real thing, but I feel like that's something I had to overcome, in particular during my undergrad experience. And then also early on in my career, just being the only Black guy in a lot of those corporate spaces I was working in, like, I didn't really have the privilege to suffer from imposter syndrome too much. Like I had to be a valiant representative of my culture. And, I had to stand up and be prideful and show that, I was selected to be here for a reason.
Right.
And, it's not because of anything beyond me or any type of affirmative action or anything like that has led me here. Like, I'm just as capable, if not more capable than my counterparts. And
that's
I had
the energy, yes.
Yeah, and I had to believe that, irrespective of how people might treat me, irrespective of those microaggressions that take place, people not really trying to embrace your shine and your light. People try and dim your light because they don't see it in themselves, or you ignite their demons or whatever,
The light usually does that to people in the dark.
Yeah, it does. But, I pray for those people and I continue to shine my light brightly.
Exactly.
And, for those people that, can't handle it for whatever reason, then, it is what it is.
It's more so like seeing imposter syndrome as it's a real thing. I'm not negating that, but it's more so like it doesn't have to be my reality. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's all about your mind. Going back to what you were saying about the prospect of the mind. What you tell yourself is a large part of your reality.
Exactly.
If you're telling yourself that you deserve to be in these spaces and that you put in the work to be there, then that's what's going to manifest. But if you're telling yourself, I don't know, and, I need these credentials. I was one of those people at one point. I was like, maybe I don't have enough credentials to be in certain
stuff.
Yeah, certain spaces. Like, for example, NABJ, the National Association of Black Journalists, is another prominent entity in the Black community, in particular in the Black journalism space. And, for a long time, I felt like I didn't deserve to be in that space because I kept telling myself, oh, JaJuan, do you even have enough credentials? This was like early on in my career. Like this is before I started working at all these places. But I was telling myself, I was feeding myself those lies, like you don't deserve. And so, throughout my 20-something years, I've been kind of just estranged from NABJ. Not that I have any aversion to being in the space or, trying it out now, but, I was feeding myself lies when I was younger. And so fast forward, I'm just like, wow, why was I telling myself that?
Exactly.
But, we live and learn. You live and learn.
And it's also what we were taught to a certain degree, a lot of us, you get just passed on fear from just what people moving out of fear, So,
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to unlearn.
That's a fact. And you also have to give yourself grace, and you also have to forgive yourself. And you have to forgive people around you too sometimes because they operate, even your parents, you got to realize that they're operating from, wherever they are in their lives.
Exactly.
Life is rough and life can be unforgiving, especially for people like us. So, we have to give each other grace. We have to give each other mercy, just like God gives to us every day.
Amen. Yeah. Is there anything you want to highlight before we bounce out of here?
Anything I want to highlight? So Conversation Libations, part 5. This just in is on the works. We're considering a series of Black-owned spaces because that's what we're trying to do. We try to keep it authentically Black. That is a main pillar of the brand. And so, we're keeping that in mind, and we're going to enhance and increase the invite list, which is something I'm really happy about. And we're going to just continue to grow and develop. And anybody that is in the media space, whether it be a content creator, whether it be a publicist, whether it be adjacent industries, advertising, marketing, I feel like the term Black Journalist Collective is sometimes misleading, but I'm saying it on record that, the space is designed for more than just journalists. It's also designed for, just young Black, brilliant movers and shakers.
Period.
So, come through, come vibe out with us at Conversational Libations, part 5. And that's I feel like that's what I have to say. And also shout out to DEJA for
appreciate you.
Holding it down.
Of course.
And, kind of leading the charge on her own empire, on her own enterprise that she's building. And
thank you.
Her consistency is something to admire. And I can't wait to see how it continues to grow and develop.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you for believing in the vision. You've been following for a minute. I've
been loyal to the soil, and I think a lot of it comes down to, just our genuine rapport.
Facts.
Ever since I've known you, it's just been positive vibes and good energy.
Facts.
We haven't had any hiccups, any quarrels, any beefs.
Facts. Knock on wood, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to couch right quick.
All right, yeah.
But just love.
Facts. Love, y'all. I appreciate y'all if y'all listen to the end. I appreciate you, JaJuan, for joining me. Oh my God. I'm so excited for this episode to come out. Thank you for everybody that listened to the end. Shout out to you. You really came back to listen all the way to the end. You love yourself. I could tell you do. I could tell you glowing right now. For real. And make sure you tell a friend, sister, auntie, dog, that it's mind over matter, baby.
Yes.
Yes, sir.